Welcome to the New Flat Rate Podcast, a podcast for contractors who need help increasing their service tickets, creating working processes, and building freedom in their life. Today's episode is about branding and marketing your company. And now, your host, Danielle Putnam.
Hi, my name is Danielle Putnam. I'm the president of the New Flat Rate. And thanks for joining us to listen in today on branding with Emily Fleniken from Lemon Seed Marketing. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Where are you calling in from today?
From good old East Texas, if you couldn't tell by my twang.
Little twangy, but not too twangy.
Oh, okay. That's the first I've heard that. Thanks.
We might need to ask you to bring out a little bit more of your drawl for us. Speak Southern for us. Well, Emily, I'd like to start the show off by talking a little bit about you so we could get to know you as a person before we dive into your expertise on branding.
That sounds great. Like you said, I'm Emily, and I'm a graphic designer by trade. I have always loved and appreciated graphic design and branding. I grew up watching my aunt do it. She has her own graphic design business. And I remember as a kid, the magnetic drawing pads, if you will, that has like a pencil attached to a string. Yes. I remember drawing a logo for her, and I'm doing logo in air quotes here. But, I remember drawing a logo for her, and I just loved that thought process and the creativity that could come with it. And I've always had a creative background, but when I went to school, I realized there's a difference between an artist and a designer. And the main thing is designers get paid for their work. They're not the starving artist. So I've definitely tried to hone in my craft towards the design world and being able to work with actual clients, not just designing things for myself, being an artist and creating art for myself, but for actual clients that can really affect their business. And so I went to school for that. And after my freshman year, I got an internship at a company called Real Graphics, where I met my husband, and we started dating there. I was the first employee. He had just started that business. And
wow.
I know. I was employee of the month. That's what I like to say every month. But anyways, through Real Graphics, I got to work with a lot of different clientele and really work in the nitty gritty and the actual production of a lot of brands and stuff. So I got a really good understanding of how can this actually be applied? Can we take it to a real world? What does it look like on a vehicle wrap and on a t-shirt and on a website, and being able to think in that full picture, if you will. And so we built Real Graphics, and after 10 years, I decided to step away from Real Graphics and start up Lemon Seed with my partner, Crystal Williams. She definitely has all of the HVAC world and service industry expertise. But when she was wanting to do what we're doing now with Lemon Seed, she said, hey, I really see a need in the HVAC industry for branding. And we had worked together for years before with her at McWilliams and Son and me at Real Graphics. And she said, hey, do you want to come on and do this with me, and we'll do this together? And I said, okay, but we got to rebrand it. And so that's where our name Lemon Seed came from. I just wanted something that was really fun and vibrant, that reflected our personalities, mine and Crystal's, but then also like the services that we try to provide to our customers. So that's been really fun in developing a name and all the kind of slogans and themes that can kind of come from it. And so I just get super passionate about it. I can totally geek out, and I'm trying not to get too technical here, but if anyone ever wants to talk branding with me, let's sit down and chat. So I'm excited to be here with you to do that.
Wow. Your passion comes through really clearly and really well. And I appreciate you sharing that with us, because it makes it really exciting for those of us who don't know much about branding, right? Now, all of a sudden, we're all intrigued and we want to know all about branding because you're so passionate about it, but it's also so applicable. And that's why we're here today for our contractor audience, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and then even a chimney and pest control and security systems, anybody in home services. Let's talk about how this can apply for you and with branding. So Emily, right before I dive right in, can I pull an Oprah Winfrey, and don't hate me for saying this?
Oh, I love it.
Was your husband okay with you leaving the company?
He was super supportive, and I am so thankful for that. He was honestly like my biggest cheerleader. Like, Crystal kind of came to me and like, hey, do you think we could do this? And I was like, I want to, but like, I don't know. And Chris was like, no, you should totally do this. And so that has been, it's made my transition. And like locally, like Real Graphics is a very local company. And so people were like, oh my gosh, are they getting a divorce? Like, but in reality, we've actually got to work very hand in hand with Real Graphics. Lemon Seed doesn't do like any production or anything like that. We're all based on the strategy and developing what that is. And then we have to work with someone to actually produce your printed direct mail or produce your vehicle wrap or things like that. And so that's actually where Real Graphics comes into play. They're not going to do so much of the strategy things. They're just going to actually produce it for you. So to me, they are very different, but they can kind of coincide. And so we've been able to still work together, if you will. And it's been a little nice to not, be sharing a desk in the same office. Like we have some newness. Like, how was your day today? What did you do today? So he's been fantastic. So, and I'm
so glad
really
to hear
grateful
that.
for that. Yes.
That's best case scenario. And it's really relevant for home services too, because so many work with family, whether it's a spouse or sibling or parent or child, right? It's a very family. Very family oriented. So to be able to support each other in future endeavors is wonderful. Let's talk about branding and what all branding encompasses. So if we are going to use, for example, a home services company, and we're going to take a look at their brand, could you give us a couple of starting points to assess a business's brand? Like, how would I know if my company brand as a service provider is good or bad or recognizable or not? What are the first couple of things that you'd look for?
Sure. So what I think is the biggest and what I strive for in every brand that I'm creating is your brand memorable? Because here's the thing. I think heating and air conditioning companies, any home service contractors, they don't need you until they need you. And so no one really cares about a heating and air conditioning company until they do. So you've got to work really hard in laying that foundation so that whenever their pipes do burst, you're going to be the first one that they think of, not having to thumb through everything or just go search and find something. So what have you been laying foundation wise for them to have noticed you, for them to remember you? And so that can be done in lots of different ways, whether that's with a character or some type of like mascot illustration or like a really bold color or like a fun, punchy name, I think a lot of contractors just get started with, I just want to do good work. And, I like to work with my hands. I don't have a creative bone in my body. So they kind of ignore the brand and they're just like, I'll just do good work and be good people. And that's how I'll grow my business. Well, that can kind of get you off the ground and maybe get you a little somewhere. But when you're looking to take things to the next level or kind of get over that $1 million hump or get over that $3 million hump, you got to do a little something that's going to make some disruptions and make some waves in the markets. And a lot of times that's going to come from a rebrand and doing something that's going to be truly memorable and turning heads like, whoa, what's happening over there?
Like a bright green truck or a bright orange truck or.
Oh, I love it. And there's so many other ways that you can apply it, not just to a vehicle wrap. Because I think oftentimes people can mistake, oh, my brand is my vehicle wrap. No, I'm talking about like, what is the language that's associated with your brand? What feelings does it evoke? What does your jingle sound like? What is the voice of your company and of your brand? And then does that relay into your call hold music and the phrasing that your CSRs answer the phone with? Like, it's so much. It's not just a logo or just a vehicle wrap design. If you could hand me a business card and if you printed it yourself on copy paper versus a really thick, nice, glossy finish or something, I am already making inferences about the quality of work that you're going to do at my home. Wow. Or if I think you're going to be, like, are you a one truck guy? Like, are you the only person who works here? Like, this looks like you hand wrote this, sir. Like, I'm already starting to make these inferences, and that's without having actually seen your work, without having a price estimate. I don't know if you're the cheapest, the more expensive, whatever, but I'm already making these inferences in my mind. And so that's really what a brand is figuring out what you want to communicate to your customers and letting that play into their mind so they can get an accurate assumption of what your company truly is.
That's a really great reminder. I think so many of us know that, hey, we're just going to do a really great job and they're going to remember and refer us to their friends, and they quite possibly will. But great point that all of the different little pieces that they're grabbing, and what was the word you said, infer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are inferring things about your company.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also, you have to be intentional, because if you're not intentionally telling the message that you want, you're unintentionally telling some other message. And that's what they're getting. It can go all the way from, what kind of uniforms are you wearing? Are your guys wearing sloppy t-shirts where the neck's all stretched out and it's got sweat stains and, boots shotgunned? We're here in Texas, they got shotgun boots with the jeans half hanging out. And I don't know if the Northerners are going to recognize that reference, but I have a totally different perception from that guy stepping out of the vehicle and then a guy that's wearing a nice polo that's tucked in and khakis and a clean hat and a van that hasn't been driven through the mud pit. I already have a different perception of the quality of work that I'm about to get. And if you're trying to tell me like, you need to upgrade your system here, like, sir, do you really know what you're talking about? Like, I almost feel like my dad might be more educated than you are, because, he at least seems polished and put together. That's what a brand is, not a logo, not a wrap design. That's a brand. All of these things that play into it, that perception of the consumer that they have of your company.
And Emily, it's not even fair, right? Perception and reality are not always matched up. And so you could be the best service provider in your area. You could be the best craftsman. But if their perception based on your brand is otherwise, then you could be missing out on big opportunity. So it's not fair, but the reality is your brand does play a piece because it communicates on your behalf.
1000%. I could not agree more.
What are a couple things I'd love to just bullet point, right? So for anybody listening in, if you've got a pen, pick it up, or a pencil, jot some of these down as Emily shares some wisdom and wealth with us. But what are a couple bullet point areas that maybe are often overlooked when it comes to the brand of, it's easy to think of branding and truck wraps. Like that's what I automatically think, right? Yeah. But to your point, that's not your whole brand. So what other areas of our business could we take a quick checklist inventory of to say, is my brand carrying through in these areas?
Sure. That could go, like I said, from your uniforms and things like that. Also to like your jingle. So if you're doing any type of mass media, like radio advertisements, things like that, having a jingle, that's almost like the logo of anything audio when you can't see things, but you can play that jingle over into television commercials and on your call hold music, things like that. You can also, I think of like the gifts that you could give people. So like if, a customer does a new install, you want to give them a nice gift or thanks for purchase, or they sign up to be a part of your membership club. What could that gift be? Like here at Lemon Seed, obviously we like to do lots of lemonade. We say that's our creative juices flowing, and, we'll send our clients lemonade packages and straws to sip some lemonade, things like that. We have some other clients that, they've really embraced a color. Like I'm thinking of a client in Oklahoma, Above and Beyond, and their color is pink and their wraps are pink. They wear pink uniforms, things like that. But their jingle is the pink Vantex do the job best. And so then that all of a sudden, like that's their new URL name, pinkvantex.com. That's
Great
on
example.
jingle. Yes. And they answer the phone. Thank you for calling the Pink Vantex. What can I do for you at Above and Beyond? That's a whole brand. And they went from all of a sudden people never noticing their truck wraps to when they had pink, it was like, oh my gosh, you couldn't help but do a head turn. And this customer, Jason, he told me, he said, they were phasing in the rebrand. So like I'd get one truck wrapped and then two truck wraps. He didn't rewrap them all at the same time. That'd be too much. But he had two trucks wrapped at the time. And those people said, oh my gosh, I see your vans all the time. Do you have like 15 trucks? Or what? He's like, no, I only have two of those pink trucks, but they all of a sudden noticed it. And that's the huge differentiation, that people haven't been memorable before. They might have passed your white truck with some red lettering 100 times on their daily commute, but they never noticed it. It was never memorable. And all of a sudden, when you have a great brand presence, that's when it can come alive. I also think a lot of times people, they let their own personal preference get in the way for what their brand could be. We've seen time and time again of how a mascot or a character can drive such great familiarity and memorability. I keep saying that, but that's what it all comes down to. We see that happen so often. And contractors are like, I don't want to be so cutesy or that's so cheesy, but they let their own personal preference get in the way of what might be best perceived by their customer. So, I had a customer the other day and he was a big man's man and he's here in Texas and he wanted a manly cowboy and, rough and tough gruff. And that's truly what he is. But I was like, but think about who your average customer is. It's probably a woman. She's going to call and schedule someone to come out to their home. It's not going to be the man, and that's already an uncomfortable situation. She probably doesn't know much about their home system. She's having to let some guy come into their house. And so, we ended up going with this super cute, friendly, smiling Jack is what we named him. And is a little boy, cowboy. And he's so cute, but he's like, oh, I get it. Like this would appeal to the women. This would appeal to the people that are going to actually be calling my company. And so I was so proud of him to let his own personal preference get out of the way and realize what would appeal to his target demographic. And that was mind boggling for him, but in a good way, because it's really expedited his business.
That's a great analogy and example too, Emily. It's so easy for us to all be in our own way, especially when it's our baby. When we started the company, we've been there since the beginning and we've always done something a certain way. It's very difficult to want to change, especially, and when other people are telling us to change too. And we're like, no, this is working for me. It's always worked. It's scary, but change can be good.
We've been using the new flat rate. I believe we started back in 2012, 2013. And I started out, we were an HVAC company. I purchased the company in 2010 and I was looking for a way to differentiate ourselves from our competition. And I was looking for a different way to present pricing to customers. I was not happy with the traditional caps pricing and I was looking for something that offered options. And, I forget how, but I was researching and I stumbled across the new flat rate and, I like what they had to offer, and that's what we signed up, and we've enjoyed it ever since. It's been a lot easier for us to convey our pricing and what we're trying to do to our customers to offer a more complete package on service and not parts changing.
I'd like to ask this question. I know some contractors who have beautiful companies, and I admire them so much. And what I admire about them in particular, these ones that I have in mind, their core values, right? Their core value is our company is, XYZ, and they are, they're very family oriented. They love God. They care about their employees, and it starts at the top, or you could say at the bottom of the foundation, right? This core value is so deep for them. And then they use that in every area of their business.
Yeah.
And when I look at them, I think of them as such wonderful leaders because they talk so boldly about what is important to them and what they care about. And that's what people want, right? So right now, when everybody's like, oh, I can't find technicians or this or that, the hiring crisis and the resignation and everybody quitting and leaving, people want to follow strong leaders. And when you have somebody that's in leadership that stands for something, that's powerful, right?
Absolutely.
So how could we go and start, or would you recommend starting with what is your core that you stand for and starting a brand there and then building it into your company?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the best brands are accurate portrayals of what your company actually is. And so, and being able to articulate what are our core values and what do we stand for and what does differentiate us from our competitors? Why did we even start this business? Was there a hole in the market, or there just weren't honest people around, or, when you figure out kind of your why, that's where this story can start to be developed, because that's what branding really is. It's storytelling. And so figuring out what that is, can definitely play into the brand. I'm thinking of a customer that we did not too long ago, and we developed this really bright, fun tree frog for their mascot. And then we took that. So we kind of developed this tagline, leap into comfort. And so that was on their vans and things like that. But then internally, we created an acronym for what LEAP should be, LEAP. So it's leadership, excellence, and I forget what the other two were, but that was their goal internally as a customer. But see how this has come full circle from not just a fun little jumping tree frog, but we're going to leap into comfort. And then our whole team is going to develop this LEAP mindset. And so like you said, your core values can
Yeah.
completely 100% play into your brand story.
Yeah, I love that. When should you look at a rebrand? So let's say my company's been in business for 30 years. We're known in the town. It's scary to consider a rebrand because then we feel like our customers won't know us and know how to find us,
Yes.
right? So when and why should we consider a rebrand?
Well, I think all contractors, when they hear the word rebrand, they hear cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yes.
That is very expensive. There's no lie about it. And it's sometimes a painful process because sometimes a branding company is going to tell you your baby, your company is ugly, and that's
Mm-hmm.
going to hurt their feelings.
Yes.
But what I like to kind of help people walk through is, and what Lemon Seed will kind of do is we have refreshes and we have rebrands. And so sometimes doing a brand refresh is a little less intimidating. And especially if they've already have a very well established something that is identifiable. They've been in the market for a very long time. They have almost a household name. But I like to think of it as think of car models, like a Ford Mustang or something. That body style has developed and changed and modified over the years. Like the 1960 model does not look like the 2022 model. Okay. At its core, you can still tell it's a Mustang, but you can see how it's become a little bit more relevant over the time and stuff. So sometimes that's just tweaking the font a little bit to look more relevant. Maybe it's sharpening up the colors a little bit more, just kind of restylizing your mascot a little bit. Look at other brands, look at the Chester, the Cheeto from Cheetos brand.
Yeah.
He evolved slightly. So that's how ways can be refreshed without people being like, who is this company? You haven't lost all of the recognizability and all of the branding and legacy that you've built up for these years. Sometimes it can be just a simple refresh, just to look a little bit more relevant, a little nice new facelift. It's just like remodeling a home. The bones, the foundation, and the structure is still there. You've just given a new coat of paint, update some fixtures, things like that. However, I will say that. So a brand refresh can be an option, but you have to have some substance there that can be refreshed. And a lot of times contractors don't actually have something. It's just a red letter font with a basic. And so then that might be a time where it's like, hey, we need to do a rebrand. We need to actually develop something because there's not enough there for us to refresh. So I think when you're looking at it, when and why to do it is if you're kind of seeing like a little hump or slump in your business, or if you're starting to look really outdated and not relevant, or it's not reflective of what your business actually is. Like maybe you guys are the leading innovators and we're always using the newest technology and we're in the forefront on doing this type of system, and everyone else is just a mom and pop shop. They're doing the old fashioned way. Like, does your brand look really old fashioned, or does your brand look very modern and innovative? So if your brand isn't actually portraying what you actually do, then it's probably time to relook at that. Maybe it is we are very family oriented and family friendly. We have traditional values and stuff. So maybe you don't need the super edgy metal modern logo. Maybe it does need to feel very nostalgic and kind of vintage,
Okay.
Does that make sense? I know I can in my own head, but hopefully that's making sense for some contractors.
Yeah, it does. And to your point, it doesn't have to be, like a 360-degree turn.
Yeah.
I think something that we definitely have to consider too is how our market and our audience is changing so much. And so with brand, our very comfortable, vintage brand, or just some lettering, right? And maybe not even a real logo. It was well known by the parents, and that was your customer, right? And then now as they're in retirement and they have grown older and they're passing things on. I mean, Emily, it is baffling my husband and I, but there's this new movement of grandparents buying their kids and their grandkids houses now. I mean, when we were kids, somebody might buy you a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And if they were really well off, your parents might buy you a car, right? My dad said, Danielle, you can drive a service van. It's on the lot. Which one do you want? Right. And I was the rich kid, because my dad was a contractor. He let me, I had keys. Nobody else had keys. I got to drive a service van. And, but I didn't get to own it. It wasn't mine. But nowadays people are buying their kids houses. And I'm like, my husband and I are like, oh my gosh, our kids are going to be the only ones with a job having to work. We're not buying them houses. But my point but as the generations change, we've got this new consumer coming up, right? And so although this customer has been such a great loyal customer with you for all of these years, now all of a sudden the people making the buying decisions in the homes, right? Their children, the children's children, this new young generation that likes things fast, and they want things now, and they want another price up front, and they want everything to be beautiful and modern, and right, like there's this whole new generation that we might have to, you can't ignore, because it's coming, and it's coming fast. So with our rebrand, also having more quick access and the auto scheduling, and go to the website and book the schedule, or texting, and all of that stuff. Yes, has to be considered, right, in the brand.
Oh, 1000%. And you make a very good point. And we always say, like, what's gotten you here is not always going to get you there. And sometimes you do have to make some changes. So like, yes, this older demographic, they were our bread and butter in the 70s, and they hung with us through the 80s, maybe the 90s and stuff. But like, we're having to shift things up now, or our competitor is doing it for us. And eventually we'll become irrelevant and not still in business. So you have to be adaptable. The only constant is change and stuff. And so you shouldn't be afraid to change or refresh your brand, just to accurately portray your company and be relevant to today's consumers.
Yeah. And they're changing fast. I mean, we can't believe it. Like our neighbors all around us, like their parents just bought them all these houses, and we're just like, who is this next generation?
It's kind of scary too, as employers, especially, like, this is our workforce, or lack thereof. But that's another episode.
Totally new field. We just kind of are like, scratching our head. Didn't see that one coming. But you know what? It is a blessing. So I don't mean to, dog on it for those. Right. It is a blessing for some. Okay. Well, Emily, we have really hit on some really great things with branding. You've provided a wealth of information and encouragement that rebranding versus refresh doesn't have to be this big, scary thing. You could start small and just kind of take a look at your relevancy in the market and make sure that it's recognizable and that people can notice it, right? So thank you so much for that reminder. It's not scary. It's like, let's take a look at our business from a 37,000 foot view to say, wait a minute, is there anything that we could do to make a difference, in a small way, and start moving forward? And it doesn't have to be overnight. It can be over time, right?
Absolutely. It can definitely be phased in. And, I like to think of it as like, okay, a truck wrap is probably going to be your first option because that's what shows up at the customer's house. That's what's utilizing the most advertising, if you will, during your windshield miles, when they're just commuting back and forth to homes. So I would get a wrap schedule going for when you're going to rewrap a vehicle. But that doesn't have to be all of them at the same time. Or maybe that's just as you buy a new vehicle and you're going to put a wrap on it anyways. Now we're just going to start doing the new design on that wrap. Also, like if a vehicle is, 10 years old and you're probably not going to have it, even though it might have the oldest wrap and it's time for a new wrap, you may not still have it in your rotation for very much longer. So don't waste the money on putting a new wrap on an older vehicle. But then the next thing I like to say is, what would be like your leave behinds with a customer? So that might be like a maintenance club brochure or a business card or something like that. So maybe getting some of your printables, things that are a little bit more leaving, if you will, like fleeting, like your uniforms and things like that. That can be a little bit more expensive. So you might want to phase that for phase 2 or phase 3 before you're going to upgrade all the uniforms. Because again, you're going to come into to the home, but then you're going to leave. So yes, they will see your logo, but that's not going to be as lasting as the leave behind that you might leave with them, your printable things. So there's definitely strategic ways of how you can do it and how you can budget for it to bite off this refresh or this rebrand and do it in a smart and strategic way without completely blowing your budget.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because it's easy for not everybody, but for some of us to feel like we have to cold turkey everything, right?
Sure.
Oh, I'm going to rebrand. So on, this date, the 31st, I can no longer, I'm going to stop using this brand. And on the 1st, I'm going to have a brand new brand, new website, new everything. And that is so stressful to work towards and try to transition everything and communicate with your customers, the change and all of the steps that go along with that. So here you are saying it's okay to do it over time. It's like,
sure. Well, and honestly, I would say your vehicle wraps and anything digital, because with maybe the exception of redoing your whole website. However, if you're doing just a refresh, probably your colors are similar. Your website company can interchange that logo very quickly. And then everything else, like your social media profiles, your Google business profile, all of those, all it takes is re-uploading a new picture as your logo. That's free. That's relatively quickly to do. You just have to be intentional. Change out your email signature, change, your QuickBooks logo at the top or your Service Titan logo, changing out those things. Again, free, very easy to do. Just pick a date, and that's when we kind of launch it, and then phase out all of those other things that are expensive.
If it's a refresh and something, just some simple upgrades on your branding, do you recommend, do we need to announce it to our customer base, or do we just let them notice it?
If it's a refresh, I'd probably just say let them notice it, just kind of ease it in. If you're doing a rebrand, to me, that's a little bit more like, wow, let's throw a brand launch party and make this big to do, and do some kind of teasers and sneak peeks and things. But again, you could still do that with a refresh. It kind of just depends how much attention do you want to draw to it. Sometimes it can be the good little kick in the pants that your company needed. And, maybe that's a reason for, you to do a chamber red carpet salute or a ribbon cutting to unveil our new logo, things like that. So depending what you might need could kind of determine that. But I think there's any way you want to do it. Working with a branding agency, they can kind of help coach you through that and walk through what the different options might be. I definitely say trust the experts. Don't get on canva.com and do it yourself. Trust on some professionals to do that for you, and they can really help ease the pain of it, because I know it's not fun for anybody.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. It's easy for especially service providers, all of us. They're doers, right? They know that they can do it. So, hey, I can just do it myself. I can figure it out. I can do it myself faster than I can communicate it to somebody else. But relying on an expert, especially when it comes down to your brand, I agree. It really is worth it to take that burden off of your shoulders and let them do it. Emily, this has been really wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today and share this valuable information. How can people reach out and get in touch with you to talk more?
Sure. Well, Crystal, my partner, and I, we actually have a podcast from the Yellow Chair where we talk all things marketing and branding for the home service industry. So if you ever want to just hear us blab some more, you can always find an episode probably relevant to what you're looking for, or our website, lemonseedmarketing.com. Love to connect with any of you guys on those ways. I really appreciate you having me here.
Oh, it was wonderful. And you really did share a wealth of information with us. So I will say this. I was privileged enough to be on your podcast one time. And afterwards, you sent me this beautiful water bottle is what, I used it for, right? And it was perfectly slender, and it's bright yellow because it's from the Lemon Chair, right? It's bright yellow. It's got the built-in straw, and I loved it and carried it with me everywhere until I melted it in the dishwasher.
Oh, no.
Yes. So I wanted to say to all of our listeners today that if you can snag one of those from Emily, you should reach out to her and say, how can I get one of these? Because they are the best water bottles.
If you reach out, I will send you a cup. I'll make that happen. How about that? Just don't put it in the dishwasher.
I know. I learned the hard way. I was like, rats. But that would be wonderful. I know people would love it. You guys have got to try it. Awesome. Emily, thanks so much again. I look forward to seeing you soon. Hey, you know what? I didn't even mention it. Lemon Seed has become a sponsor of Business Uncensored, our annual business conference with the new flat rate. Thank you so much for your sponsorship, for partnering with us. And we will really look forward to seeing you in Atlanta, October 3rd through 5th at the Omni this year in 2022 for our conference, and Lemon Seed will be there. And so for all of y'all who will be there, be sure and spend time with them and talk about your business and how they can help. We are just thrilled that they're partnering with us on this event, and can't wait to see you guys in Atlanta.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We'll see you then.
We've been in business almost 25 years, and my parents struggled hard, and my mom always hated pricing. It was just always out of control, and nobody was on the same page. So then when the new flat rate came into the picture, one of our guys was like, we'll never sell an install over $10,000. There's no way. The very first call he ever went out on literally doubled our highest install ever. And he was like, okay, there's something to this. Totally took the pressure off of my parents trying to figure out a pricing structure. The new flat rate is the stress reducer of your company.
Visit thenewflatrate.com to get started today and put the profit in your pocket.